Greetings, people of the interwebs. It's been a while since I last recorded anything here for the channel. So let's just say that this episode here of Comic Conversations will be season 2 of the series here on the Comics Amino YouTube channel. And joining me on this Comic Conversations, if you have not already read the description or the title, is none other than Condiment King.
Woohoo! That's me, Mitchell Mayo, the one and only Condiment King.
All right. So, before we really get into this interview or conversation, since you are the Condiment King, I gotta ask, and the answer could very easily change how the whole conversation as a whole. So not to put too much pressure on you, but ranch or blue cheese?
Well, you've just guac to ask, do you? All right. Well, I'll tell you my honest answer. I say ranch to that. Blue cheese is decent, but it just has that stench to it, you know?
Good answer.
It must get to your lungs and, rile everything up. I have to say ranch. I'm going to answer on that one. Definite ranch.
You answered correctly. If you had answered blue cheese, I may have had to end this recording and just never speak to you ever again. I'm only sort of joking, but I really don't like blue cheese. But anyways, so now that the most important thing's out of the way, we can dive into some of the other topics. So you've been on Comics Amino for a while now, correct? About a little over a year.
A little over a year, yes, sir.
Hopefully it's been a pleasant experience. I would hope so.
Pleasant.
So, I guess first off, how did you first find out about Comics Amino?
Well, you'd be surprised. I started on Cartoon Amino. I know it sounds strange, someone called Condiment King starting off on another Amino, but yes, I did. I started on Cartoon Amino, and I worked up from there. After a while, I'm like, you know what? Because at the time, I had individually just downloaded the Cartoon Amino app, see? And I didn't know that there was a whole Amino by itself until I started seeing ads pop up inside the actual app. And I'm like, you know what? I have an interest in comics. This might work out for me much better than I thought it would. And after I started trying to mediate between Comics Amino once I joined it and Cartoon, but eventually I left Cartoon Amino and went full-time Comics Amino because personally, I found Comics Amino much more inviting, and it was much more of a familiar space for me. So
it's good to hear that Comics Amino was very inviting. It actually, because I actually was on several different Amino until I got the curator position, and then I pretty much I tried to stay active because I was also on the Star Wars Amino and the Heavy Metal Amino, but being a curator, I'm kind of I didn't have a whole lot of extra time to write blogs for Star Wars or the Heavy Metal Amino, so I was kind of I'm just gonna stick to comics anyways. So yeah, kind of the same thing. Although I think I've been on Comics Amino now for 2 years, over 2 years, maybe 3. I don't even know. Everything just kind of blurs together now. So I guess who are some of your favorite comic characters, some of the comics that you first started reading?
Well, I put this, kind of outlined it in my 1-year post, but it didn't get as many people as I thought it would get exposed to, so I'll tell you here, because excellent podcast, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
Following it for a while. I'll tell everyone my starting story right here. That's right, you heard it here, folks. First, Jake Galling's very splendid podcast here. You heard Mitchell Mayo's starting story. So,
it's a big
it
scoop,
began
kids.
on my 12th birthday. My family has a relative, correct? He's my uncle. And he gave to me Daredevil, The Man Without Fear. 5 issues. Excellent series. I started off there, and believe it or not, I was not into it. I was not into it one bit.
Really?
Yes, I ditched it. I threw it into my dresser, and I hadn't looked at it for a couple of months. But out of the blue, one day I was feeling bored and I picked it up again. I'm like, you know what the heck, I'll read this.
Yeah.
I was never big on superheroes, never big on comics either. But I read it, and I was engaged. At first I wasn't, but after a while it grew on me. I don't know how, don't know, whatever it was, for a reason, I started to respect its artistry and Frank Miller's fine work there. And ever since then, I've been collecting comics. That was the starter for me.
That's really interesting, because usually, like, when people, or just like, people that I've talked to, whether it be here on the channel or just, people in general, and I ask them, what was the comic that first got them into it, it's usually like one of those moments where it's kind of like, yeah, I cracked open that episode of the issue of Superman and it blew my mind. I don't think I've talked to anybody where they're kind of like, meh, read a comic, didn't care for it. So that's actually really interesting. So, like, since Daredevil was the first comic you ever read, is he kind of like your go-to Marvel character, or do you really have like a favorite comic hero, whether it be Marvel, DC, or anything like that?
Oh, that's a funny story too. Actually, I've kind of been letting go on Marvel for a while in the past couple years. I do like Daredevil, and I still very fervently read Daredevil and Spider-Verse, but I've actually steered away from Marvel since then. And I've started to get to more DC because this is just my opinion. I feel DC is much more inviting for new readers. They don't have as many reboots, and they like to keep their titles straightforward. They don't have several titles per character and whatnot. They usually either stick to one or two at a time, and then maybe a few little, 6-issue mini titles that they have at some periods of time, and that's it. So I found DC more inviting. I kind of feel welcome there. I mean, I'm a DC character.
I think that's a good point, because I mean, how many Spider-Man titles are out there? How many X-Men titles? Deadpool, and like, I understand that because those are like some of their top sellers, but at the same time, it's almost like they're oversaturating their own market with characters to where new readers are kind of like walking into a comic book shop. They're like, all right, today's the day I get into comics, and Spider-Man's my guy. I'm going to buy a Spider-Man comic. And then they look at the shelves, it's like, why are there 5 different Spider-Man comics? Which one's the one that, like, I should, like, where do I start? And imagine even for, like, the comic book shop owners or something like that, it's kind of like, okay, so this is the Spider-Verse one where it's like all the different Spider-Mans and the multiverses. This is like, it's like, I imagine it's a little overwhelming, because then the person's like, never mind, I'm not going to read Spider-Man. Whereas DC, it is, for the most part, like, you have, like, your Superman comic, you have your Batman, and you will have, like, a few, like, other titles, like, 'cause there's Detective Comics and there's the main Batman, and stuff like that. But I feel like they streamline their stories a bit better than Marvel.
Precisely.
Okay, so what are some of the DC comics that you've really been digging here lately, or that you're currently reading?
Well, I'm glad you asked. Actually, I've been into quite a few DC titles recently. Everybody knows that elephant in the room, Justice League is out, and it's selling very well. I'm loving Justice League. Justice League, since Christopher Priest ended his what's called role in it, I still didn't mind Christopher Priest. A lot of people didn't, but I liked it. He was running Deathstroke at the same time, and I'm like, okay, mediating a little bit. I like Justice League. But now, this new Justice League, now this is where it gets real. I'm loving Justice League. So, we're already... next issue's coming up soon, and I'm pretty sure I looked ahead. They're supposed to have Batman Who Laughs join the Legion of Doom, so yet another Dark Knight's Metal crossover for Justice League. It's amazing.
Nice.
Yes, so Justice League is definitely one of my top right now. Batman, as you know, I actually starred in the most recent issue, Batman 54. I got knocked out by Nightwing and Batman, unfortunately, but it was a splendid issue, and despite a controversy over Batman 50, I thought it was a nice role. See, Batman and Catwoman, to me, their relationship has always been about the chase. Yeah. It's never been a solid relationship for me. I always loved seeing them chase each other across rooftops, getting into kerfuffles, seeing Catwoman, get into situations where she has to choose helping Batman or getting out with a paycheck, So having a solid relationship, I just didn't feel like it was the way Batman and Catwoman really I wanted them to go,
Yeah.
at least me, in the end. And I like the way Tom King took it. 51 to 53 issues 51 to 53, right afterwards with Batman's grieving. The Mr. Freeze issues were a nice psychological thriller. I loved those and went on from there. So Batman is looking up for me. And then finally, I'm going to throw one more out there. Damage. If you like a good beat-em-up comic, I have to recommend Damage to you, because Damage has actually been quite excellent. They just had Damage Annual #1 come out, and Damage, the next issue is coming out soon. And again, DC's New Age of Heroes most of them have been excellent. I liked Sideways, Silencer. I've been following most of those, but Damage, out of all of them, I think I'm liking that one most. People call it a what's it called? Hulk copy, and I can see the similarities there, but personally I see a lot of differences too. This 1 hour power kind of system to it is actually very intriguing. Seeing a military soldier just trying to serve his country and then getting thrown into this system where he's become a literal monster, carrying everything up with no mind and battling his own mentality and his sanity, has really been interesting. They've had lots of crossovers. There's been Wonder Woman, Suicide Squad, they had Poison Ivy. They're about to have the whole Justice League fight Damage, and a new Damage host coming up soon as well.
Who's the creative team behind this comic?
I'm sorry, what did you say?
Who's the creative team behind Damage?
Behind Damage? Let me think here. I believe it started off with quite a few names. They don't come to mind most recently, but I know most recently the recent people in charge of it have been Lopresti, Venditti, Ryan, and Hi-Fi.
Not familiar with their work.
I wasn't either, but they've been doing a splendid job with Damage, so I'll give them creds there.
Yeah, at some point I do need to start back up with reading Marvel and DC, because I haven't been reading either of the big two in quite some time. So you're saying that like you've been reading more DC here lately, but are you one of those people that has a preference between the two, or are you kind of just whatever title you're reading, that's what you're into?
Oh, well, I'm not going to go bashing Marvel too much. Personally, I can't say that Marvel has done the best job, because I have tried personally to try to get back into it after a while. I took a nice hiatus with Marvel to try to get into DC, and when I came back, I found myself reading issues and spending money, because a guy that shoots ketchup and mustard out of guns doesn't make much money, so I'm a little tight there on what I should be buying.
Maybe.
And Marvel has not been impressing me too much since their reboot. There's been a few that I've liked.
Yeah.
Marvel 2-in-1 has been excellent. I love Marvel 2-in-1. The Edge of Spider-Verse that's been coming out, that's been excellent too. I've loved those. But Fantastic Four has not done it very well for me. It was mediocre at best because of an inconsistency in it, where I found in Marvel 2-in-1 it was stated that Human Torch, he was losing his powers and he was dying because he kept using his Human Torch abilities.
Yeah.
And in Fantastic Four issue 1 with this new reboot, that whole trope was completely cast away. We see no sign of him suffering from using his powers or anything. I'm like, Marvel, where's the consistency? Like, nothing against them, but I'm seeing several errors lately. And again, an oversaturated market, very oversaturated. So I would have to say DC is definitely my top seller right now.
Okay. Now, back to you, I guess, maybe not being the most wealthy of people. Have you tried opening a restaurant? You are a condiment king, so I'd imagine, like, or even a hot dog stand. Someone's kind of like, oh man, wish I could have, like, some mustard. Bam. Like, you literally just pull out your mustard gun. Bam. They're good. I think just maybe start off with, like, a little hot dog stand, and then, like, start building, like, your own restaurant empire. And then since you're in with the criminal underworld of Gotham and DC, kind of be like, hey, Lex Luthor, want to invest in my hot dog stand? It's gonna be really big.
Well, you know what? I'd love to tell you yes there, but as of right now, I've been sticking to robbing stuff, and I've been doing it for quite a while, you know. I mean, I am the custard king. I am the condiment king. I've
Obviously.
made quite a name for myself, if I do say so. And I'm not sure people want to hire me. So if I do start my own business, hopefully I won't be looked down upon because of my rather strange past with condiments and raiding grocery stores and hot dog stands. As such, you know.
True, but then,
But,
you know,
I
you
will
might...
consider, I did run the Iceberg Lounge. I worked for Penguin for a, you know, I had my own chat room, the Iceberg Lounge, which is, as you know, Penguin's rather fine diner that he, or lounge, bar, everything that he owns in Gotham. And I had a short job, well lived there, and I got fired, unfortunately, but hopefully an opportunity does come up and I can find a little bit of a raise for myself, you know? Try to spend a little bit more on comics now and then.
Here's the thing, though. If you open, like, say, like a hot dog stand or some kind of restaurant, maybe Batman will kind of be like, oh, he's turned over a new leaf. What a swell guy. And you can use your hot dog stand as kind of like a front, and you can kind of get, like, the word around town. Like, open it up, like, in a centralized area in Gotham. So you hear the word and kind of be like, okay, so and so's making some moves here. So you know you get to hear the word of the town while selling your food and condiments and stuff like that. And then again, you can use it as a front and launder your money through it. So
hey, that'll be my barbecue to start. Absolutely, I'll take you up.
there you go, and I like those puns. Keep them coming.
I sure will.
So and I guess like within since we're still within the realm of DC, and I imagine everyone listening to this, this will be probably by the time this video gets edited and uploaded, this will be old news. But at the time of this recording, just yesterday, it was announced that Henry Cavill will most likely be stepping down as Superman. What are your thoughts on that?
He's quite in a pickle there. Alas, what a tragedy. The man did do a good job. I actually, personally, I was a fan of Cavill's work in Man of Steel.
Yeah,
and,
I love Man of Steel.
Although Batman versus Superman wasn't the most exciting of movies.
No.
I personally he did a good job acting,
Mm-hmm.
as well as in Justice League. I mean, as an actor he's done an excellent job.
Yeah.
Most of the spill-ups here with the DC EU has really been in the plot. Honestly, the actors themselves have been great.
Yeah.
But I can see why Henry Cavill has stepped down. I've been noticing a lot in the media. He's had quite a few roles in different movies. Just recently, I heard that he is taking up a role. Netflix's The Witcher as Geralt. That's surprising. Actually,
It
I didn't
was.
hear about that until a couple days ago, and
And I guess like for me, like it does suck because I seem to be like in the split fan base that I really like Man of Steel, and I really wanted to see a Man of Steel 2 and just more Man of Steel movies, but of course that has yet to happen and doesn't look like it will happen. But like at the same time, I can't entirely blame Henry Cavill for like not trying, not wanting to like step back in the role because he was there from the beginning of DCEU. He's the one who started it. And then in the second movie, that was supposed to be his direct sequel, got turned into a team-up movie where he was kind of pushed to the sidelines. It was more of like Batman with Superman, special appearance by Wonder Woman. And I imagine like at first he was kind of like, okay, whatever, that's cool. I like this idea of like a team-up with Wonder Woman and Batman. And then in Justice League, he was dead through most of the movie. And then he finally comes back, and that's the more kind of the Superman we're all familiar with. And I like those scenes, even though I didn't really care much for the movie. But it's still the fact that like they're focusing on all these other movies. Like we're getting Shazam. I never thought in a million years we'd even get a Shazam movie, let alone Shazam movie, before we get a solo Batman movie or a Man of Steel 2. So it's like they're prioritizing all these other movies, which I'm not opposed to, but it's like maybe we should put Man of Steel 2 out first, a solo Batman movie out first, like focus on like the core Justice League members. Like again, we still don't have that Flash movie that was supposed to come out I think last year. So I think like I imagine if I was in Henry Cavill's shoes, I'd be a little frustrated. That's kind of like, hey guys, so not to brag, but like people seem to like me as Superman. I enjoy playing the role. It's been like 5 years. How come I haven't gotten a direct sequel yet? So I'd kind of be like, look, guys, I mean, my contract's over after this point. If I'm not getting my sequel movie, what? And again, with the mess that the DCU's in, I'd kind of be like, I'm out. And again, like I think Superman, the role really helped Henry Cavill because before that he had done like several acting roles, but that was what really put him in like the spotlight for most people, like kind of in the mainstream audiences. So it's like now he's in these other high profile movies like the newest Mission Impossible movie. So I think like he's now like kind of established himself, and I think he'll do just fine if again if he doesn't continue playing Superman. But at the same time, it's kind of like so now what that puts WB in a weirder position. Like it's not like they already had a good grasp on the DCEU, but now it's kind of like all right, so I'm pretty sure Affleck's not coming back. Doesn't look like Cavill's coming back. So now it's Wonder Woman, Gal Gadot. Jason Momoa as Aquaman, and Ezra Miller as Flash. And it's like, so where do they go from here? That's kind of like my biggest thing, is like this really puts the whole already weird DCEU in a further flux, because it's kind of like, now we've lost Superman. Do we recast him? Do we reboot him? And I guess, do you have a preference? Like, would you prefer that, like, again, like, say they do a Justice League 2, or even a Man of Steel 2, without Cavill, would you prefer they just reboot the character, or just recast him and, pretend like nothing happened?
I'm not sure. I think they might have to. Personally, I agree with you 100%. I did like Man of Steel. It was quite surprising to me that people didn't like it. But I also agree that Warner Bros. Has their priorities out of place. I would have liked, at this point, because Henry Cavill is left, Ben Affleck is out, where's half the Justice League? They're not going to be able to continue at this rate. The MCU has already been outliving them, outcasting them, and obviously it's much more prosperous than the DCEU because of ratings and such. So at this point, I think they might just have to reboot it. And they might do a few standalone films, like Shazam. Hopefully, is pretty great. It looks pretty. I thought the trailer made it look nice. Mm-hmm. It took a nice, what's called, I guess how to put it,
like lighter tone.
It made a nice reference to the New 52 costume. Everything in it had a humorous tone, a lot better than the darker tone that the DCEU has had recently. That's probably been a leading point on why they haven't had as much of a fan base, I say.
Yeah, and I think, and again, I think a lot of it is just the fact that, like, with Marvel and why they've been doing so well is they have, like, their own head of that department for Disney. Kevin Feige is the head of, like, the Marvel branch. Whereas Warner Brothers, it's still, like, there really isn't, like, a singular head honcho of, like, DC. It's still all, like, a collective of, like, producers and executives where half of them are kind of like, I don't like this extended universe, just do standalone movies. And then the other half are kind of like, no, we need an extended universe, we gotta compete with Marvel. And then there's probably a few people who are kind of like, I don't really care, superhero stuff, who cares? So I think that's kind of the biggest problem with, like, Warner Brothers is not, like, there's no cohesion with, like, the leadership. Everyone's kind of, like, split all different ways. And even like, because I tried to appoint, like, Jeff Johns as, like, the kind of head honcho, but I feel like even with that, he could only do so much. Like, maybe he could kind of steer it in the right direction of, like, hey, I'm a comic writer, I'm familiar with these characters and stories, here's how I would do it, but then he could pitch the idea to, like, a studio executive who's never read a comic book or knows comic books and be like, no, I don't like it, this is dumb, I don't get it, rewrite this and change this, and don't hire that person, cast this person as this. So I think that's another reason why the DC universe has been just such a mess, is there's really no leadership. Everyone's kind of like split in all sorts of different directions, which is a shame because DC has the most iconic, like, superheroes. Just in the Trinity alone, Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman. And thankfully Wonder Woman was a great movie. But it's kind of like that's kind of all they got right now, because Aquaman hopefully will be really good. I mostly hope so, just because Aquaman's one of my favorite DC characters, so I want him to finally get the justice that he deserves.
Agreed. Very underrated.
But if the movie turns out like kind of lukewarm, like a lot of the other DC movies, where it's like half the fans like it, the other half don't, then it's kind of like, will they do another Aquaman movie then? Because it seems like every time a movie gets mixed reactions, Warner Brothers are very reactionary, and they're kind of like, half the people didn't like it, we could change everything. Because originally they were supposed to be Justice League 2 filming right after the first Justice League film finished, shooting, and that's not happening. So, and again, I think that's another thing too, is like Warner Brothers, they don't stick to their guns. They're like, anytime something goes slightly wrong, they freak out and panic. Whereas at least with Marvel, even though some of their weaker movies, like Iron Man 2, wasn't super crazy about, but like the people who didn't like that movie, they didn't like panic. They're kind of like, look, this is the plan, we're sticking to it, and it's worked out. Infinity War was everything a comic book reader could have dreamed of for the ultimate team-up movie. And I thought it was pulled off, flawlessly.
Excellently, yes, I agree. They had all the characters because they had built it up. Even just mediocre films, like I agree with you, there have been mediocre MCU films, although most of the MCU fans might not want to agree with it. I personally believe there have been some lackluster MCU films, but because they've stuck with this die-hard schedule and they aren't letting go of it, they're casting new characters, they've got new characters, they've got the same actors in place. Almost nothing has changed in between when the MCU first started and since now. They led up to something great like Infinity War, followed through with it, and look how the reviews are. Look how the fan base has grown. It's on an excellent run.
And also just the fact that, like, Marvel, they've got 2 movies on Ant-Man. Who would have thought we'd ever see an Ant-Man movie?
Exactly. Ant-Man 1. Honestly, I couldn't see an Ant-Man, the first movie coming for Ant-Man, or Deadpool. I mean, even though that's completely different, on a different level, it looks like Fox has been going up too. Personally, I wasn't the biggest fan of Deadpool 1.
Really?
But Deadpool 2 was surprisingly very nice, and it looks like they're on their way up past the X-Men movies, and they're on their way to the MCU as well, since they did their nice little deal there with Sony. Mm-hmm. Everything's looking up for just the whole Marvel universe in particular.
Okay, so like, let me ask you this then. So now that like Fox and Marvel have worked out the deal, would you prefer that the current X-Men cast, because once Dark Phoenix comes out, will take place in the 90s, so they could theoretically work it into the Marvel universe. So would you prefer that they keep the same cast and just incorporate them into the MCU, or would you prefer like just another total recast?
That's a good question. I'd have to think about that, but personally, just going from what you've told me right now, I think that a recast might not be the worst idea. I mean, nothing against these actors that have been in, but if MCU wants to make a nice role for themselves, and because the older X-Men films have practically been forgotten by today's media, recasting these characters and incorporating them into the MCU with a nice new, what's called stack of characters, a nice new take on the X-Men, might not be the worst idea for Marvel and Disney.
And I think that's, the smart idea. The only thing, because here's one thing that I will give Fox is, in my opinion, I think they perfectly cast Wolverine, Professor Xavier, and Magneto. And then and then when they recast both Xavier and Magneto for First Class, I was like, well, how do you even come close to Ian McKellen and Patrick Stewart? I thought they did a great job with James McAvoy and Michael Fassbender as Xavier and Magneto. So it's kind of like, all right, you got lightning in a bottle, like recasting or casting Magneto and Xavier great both times. So my only thing is like, okay, so now Marvel will have the difficult task of recasting once again. So it's like, well, how are they going to come close to either Patrick Stewart, Magneto, or Ian McKellen, or James McAvoy and Michael Fassbender as their respective roles. I think that's going to be a difficult choice. Other than that, and Wolverine once they decide to recast Wolverine, but I think like Cyclops, Jean Grey, and all the other X-Men characters, I don't think will be as difficult to recast just because. I don't know, like, and not to say that like the actors in the previous X-Men films that were bad by any means. I just think like they didn't leave a big enough impact like Hugh Jackman, Ian McKellen, and Patrick Stewart or the other actors to where I can totally see other actors playing, Jean Grey and Storm and all that stuff.
Agreed. In the grand scheme of things, the older X-Men is just not as well known. But you do bring up a fair point. Hugh Jackman, Magneto, and Professor Xavier are going to be hard to replace if they do, because they did quite an excellent job in all their films that they've done so far.
Oh yeah, and again, like I don't see the MCU incorporating the X-Men or even Fantastic Four until much later. Like it'll probably be like towards the end of like Phase 4, is what I would imagine, since they already have, I think they stated they've got like 20 movies in development. So, and again, development doesn't mean that like they're filming those. It just means that like they're currently working on scripts or set designs and all that stuff. So the fact that they already have, I'm pretty sure it's 20 at least. That means that like, and again, they might have been like preparing for like the possible, kind of like what they did with Spider-Man in Civil War, where they weren't 100% sure if they would get the work out that deal. So they had two different scripts for Civil War, one with Spider-Man, one without. So I still think that like we might see Easter eggs, like references to maybe like the Baxter Building or Fantastic Four characters, X-Men characters, but I don't know if we're actually going to see like an MCU proper X-Men movie or Fantastic Four movie until much later, which I'm okay with. I'm fine with Marvel in the MCU like further exploring like sequels for Doctor Strange, Spider-Man, hopefully Guardians of the Galaxy, which we'll see where that goes, considering how that's kind of up in the air right now, unfortunately. And of course Captain Marvel, Black Panther, and then new characters. Like I'm sure Nova will be a new character in Phase 4, along with tons of other characters.
Agreed.
Now, are there any, that I guess kind of continue with the whole Phase 4, are there any Marvel characters you would like to see pop up in Phase 4 that either haven't appeared yet in Marvel, or characters that have appeared that you want to see a standalone movie of?
Well, for Marvel characters, I don't mind as much. I know, personally, some of my favorite Marvel characters would be kind of hard to incorporate, like Daredevil, Punisher. These are a little bit too dark, I think, for the role that Disney wants to take with their future MCU. There's not much comedy for something like the Punisher to kind of fit into the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So, personally, this is one suggestion I have, and this isn't necessarily a new character, but I don't know if you've been reading. Guardians of the Galaxy has had an excellent portrayal of Drax that I simply love. In the actual MCU, Drax right now is this die-hard killer, and obviously he's gone now because of Infinity War. But if they do, because inevitably they're going to bring something back, if they do have some way of doing something with Drax, I want to see Drax as a pacifist. He was wearing a white robe in the latest Guardians of the Galaxy comics, and he was completely pacifistic as all the Guardians were trying to break out of prison, and all this crazy stuff intermingling, and Drax just calmly sits on the floor and he's meditating as lasers are flying around him and all this crazy stuff is happening. And I'm sure it would make a nice bring a nice piece of humor to the MCU, seeing him in a white robe, just being this like ascetic monk-like character in the MCU would just lighten my heart.
There'd also be one really interesting for the team of Guardians of the Galaxy, because they're all, I don't know, I think that would add a nice dynamic, not just to the overall MCU, because we really don't have any characters that I can think of where they're very like pacifistic. Most of them are like at best a reluctant hero, where they don't really want to jump into the fray to like fight people, but it's kind of like, well, I've got these powers, I might as well do something. So to have someone, especially a character like Drax, on the team of Guardians of the Galaxy, I think would really add a nice dynamic to the team. especially compared to someone like Rocket, who, you know, a lot of the second Guardians movie was like a lot of the events was he stole from the golden people whose name escaped me. So like the fact that like he's more the one who's all for like stealing, or he's, you know, he doesn't mind to like get his hands dirty. I think that would be a nice dynamic just with those two. You know, Rocket wanting to like rob someone, and Drax the pacifist, or the new incarnation of Drax would be, you know, anti stealing and all that stuff. So yeah, that'd be a really interesting addition to, you know, maybe Guardians 3 or future MCU movies.
Again, they may not do it, but personally, I'd love to see it.
All right. So, just with that pun, I gotta ask, what are some of your other go-to condiments on your food? Whether it be like French fries, hamburgers, hot dogs.
Boom! Excellent. Here we go. Perfect question. All occasions. Everybody asks me this, you know. And I'll always tell them straight answer. Let's run through a nice little line here. I'm not trying to rush you on time, but I've got a nice setup here. So,
okay.
Hot dogs. Let's start off there. Everybody loves a good hot dog.
Mm-hmm.
When you take a hot dog, you take that nice wiener, you take that nice bun, you get them ready, and here's what I want you to do.
Okay.
You take a nice pack of mustard, and you smack that thing on that hot dog. Mustard is perfect for any hot dog.
Agreed.
If you're feeling a little crazy, you can smack some ketchup on there too. I'll allow it. Ketchup and mustard. Usually I don't like just ketchup. That's my suggestion.
I'm not a huge fan of ketchup either. My go-to is usually ranch. Now, if I mean a hot dog or a brat, I like a little bit of mustard. Not a whole lot, though. Just a thin little line of mustard.
Mustard's fine. Again, personally, if you want a line, if you want a whole lot, honestly, it doesn't ruin it in the slightest for me. That's just my suggestion, and you should take mine because I'm a professional saucier. But
naturally,
that's beside the hot dogs, mustard, ketchup if you're feeling crazy, and then slight relish. Relish you want to watch out for. Relish, if you put it on a hot dog, you can ruin it if you put too much. You want to sprinkle it, lightly seasoned. Same thing with onions. Onions, very light, very tender. You cannot handle it like, you know, some random buffoon, some gorilla throwing it on there.
Yeah.
You must have nice, clean finesse when you're throwing those onions and those relish on that hot dog. So that's it for hot dogs. Fries, up to you. Amazing variety. How I personally, I'm a fanatic of fries, and I'm surprised by how many sauces, how many combinations work with fries.
Oh yeah.
Ketchup. You would not believe it. Ketchup, I've tried barbecue sauce. It actually surprisingly works. Ranch works very well. Ranch works well with a lot of stuff.
Ranch is my go-to condiment for pretty much everything, but in particular fries. Although, I was recently on holiday in Belgium and Germany, and most Europeans, and in particular the Belgians, though, because fries, fun fact, fries actually originate in Belgium, not France. But they go with, they have mayonnaise with their fries, and I'm all for mayonnaise and fries after my holiday in Belgium.
100% agree with you there. Like I was about to say, almost anything works. Mayo, like I said, ketchup. Surprisingly, what's it called? I'm not sure if you're aware. Campfire sauce goes great on a lot of stuff.
Campfire
sauce with fries is literally one of the best things I've ever tasted in my life.
What's campfire sauce?
Oh, you gotta look it up, man. It's like, I don't know how to explain it to you. It's like ranch, and I know this sounds crazy. Just hear me out here. It's like ranch and barbecue sauce mixed up. And I know it sounds very weird, but in some strange concoction that I can't exactly describe to you unless I make it or unless you have it yourself. This is one of the most excellent things that you can stick in your mouth. Just shove it in. I don't know if you're familiar with Red Robin. They actually have a nice campfire sauce over there. So next time you go to Red Robin, if you do, if you're a fan of that place, personally their food is so-so for me. But their campfire sauce there is delectable.
I've never eaten there, but if I ever find myself at one, I'll ask for the campfire sauce. Because it actually does sound interesting. Because I tried a sauce in Belgium called cocktail, where it's ketchup, mayonnaise, and whiskey. mixed together, and that was an interesting combination, but really good. Goes perfectly with fries.
Mm-hmm. Sounds nice. I'd have to. Personally, I'm not the biggest fan of mixing alcohol with my condiments. I like my clean condiments how they are. Mixing my condiments together, I don't usually take other things and make it into some kind of absorbent mix, but I'll decide to do it sometime. I suppose I will. Thank you for the little lesson there.
No problem. Okay, so what about hamburgers? What do you usually stick on hamburgers? King of condiments.
This is where it gets real, my friend. Very, very careful with hamburgers. Hamburgers can easily be made to a point where if you put too much sauce on it, it ends up being ruined on the inside, and you bite into it, and there's this nasty gush of all this junk going in your mouth. And if you put too slight in there, all you taste is the meat, the lettuce, the cheese, whatever you have. It's very strange. So here's what I suggest personally. Again, ranch, this is one place where you might go wrong with ranch. I'm not the biggest fan of ranch on my burgers. That's just me. You can put it on if you like. Honestly, there are not many sins when it comes to condiments. But personally, I'm not the biggest fan of ranch. What I do, first, you start with the bottom layer, correct? The bun. Smack on the meat. You want that nice, tender, whatever meat you have, pork, steak, ham, whatever. Beef especially, that's definitely your
go-to.
Your basis there.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Stick that one right on top. You will not put condiments on the bread. Repeat after me. You will not put condiments on the bread.
I will not put condiments on the bread.
Never do that. It soaks into the bread, and it's just this nasty mess. You always want to put it on top of the meat or on top of the lettuce that you put right over the meat. So, as I was about to say, either you put your condiments on, and I'll explain condiments in a sec, but you either take that meat and you smack it on and then put lettuce on that thing, or you take some condiments and mix it in and then put lettuce on top of that. Either way, I'm going to go with the lettuce route first. So you take that meat, and after you've put whatever assortment of meat you have there, you put that lettuce on. That's where you put the condiments on. Surprisingly, it is not once you put a nice thin layer of cheese on top of the lettuce. It actually works better if you stick the condiments in the middle there. You want that nice cheesy layer to touch the roof of your mouth, while the rest of it sinks to the bottom of your mouth, and it mixes together. Again, quite a nice mix. So now I'm going to get into the juicy part, which is the condiments, because that is my go-to right there. That is what I know best. So if you are having a hamburger, ketchup, mustard, both okay, separately, okay? Mm-hmm. Personally, ketchup and mustard, I don't know why, they just don't exactly always mix with the hot dog.
Yeah.
So usually when you go to fast food places, which I'm not the biggest fan of, they don't make it fresh,
Yeah.
They throw it out of the freezer and whatnot. They have a nice way, though, of not overusing ketchup or mustard. And if they don't, they have ketchup or mustard on the outside, which you can put on optionally. But they always have a nice layer of mayonnaise on there. Mm-hmm. Mayonnaise is almost a must for any hamburger. Mayonnaise is very good for hamburgers.
Oh, yeah.
And it kind of ties it together, Without mayonnaise, your burger isn't exactly complete. And again, very sparing on that mayonnaise. You do not want to put a whole slab on there. And you also don't want to, leave it a lack thereof of mustard. But a nice sparing amount, just enough to cover that layer right there on top of the lettuce, perfectly fine. Again, ketchup, mustard, whatever you want there. Barbecue works well, but if you want barbecue, you're going to need to take away that ranch, or either ranch or mayo, whatever you put on as your topper on the lettuce.
Yeah, I feel like those flavors would be too conflicting.
Absolutely not, yeah. Campfire sauce, great, but it does not mix unless it's already been made into campfire sauce. So never try mayo or ranch with the barbecue, because that just ruins the burger. Shame on you. And so, again, as I was saying, there's a whole variety, all kinds of stuff. Campfire sauce, Dijon mustard, all kinds of perfect things that you can put on a burger that just ties it together, especially honey mustard. Personally, one of my favorites is honey mustard. I don't like usually putting anything except for honey mustard on my burgers, but when I do, On top of the lettuce, I put honey mustard, smack some cheese on that thing, another bun, and it's good to go. Honey mustard is quite delectable when it comes to burgers. Speaking of, I did have a story.
Okay.
Working at a burger place, someone came in, asked for a barbecue burger, called Backyard Burgers was the name of this place, okay? Someone walked into this place, ordered a barbecue burger, it was called a Texas barbecue burger. Personally, I don't think it had too much Texas in it, just enough barbecue. This man literally told the cashier to hold the barbecue. I was astonished. I wanted to slap this man. I was undercover at the time, but I wanted to slap this man. It's a barbecue burger. People, is it that hard to understand that a barbecue burger must have barbecue to tie together? Otherwise, it's just this dry meat. It's dry meat inside.
It's just a regular burger then, and he should have just asked for a regular burger.
Exactly. I mean, even if the meat was different, if it was pulled pork, which usually comes with a barbecue burger, it's just dry meat or bland meat in a burger. Some people, I'm telling you, this is probably why I rob grocery stores. I'm starting to have a hatred for people that misuse my perfect condiments or refuse them in situations where there are priorities.
I mean, after this laydown of, again, the proper condiments and what they go best with, the more I'm starting to realize you really should open up your own restaurant, and you being the proprietor of the restaurant, if someone does do that, where they order a barbecue burger and holds the barbecue, you can just shoot them in the face with your condiment gun, barbecue, and be like, no, you're not going to come in here and order a barbecue hamburger and tell me to hold the barbecue. It's not happening. Just order a regular hamburger, or order a hamburger with condiments, you heathen. And you have every right to kick them out of your restaurant.
That word.
Yeah.
Personally, I was thinking more along the lines of you ignorant scut, but
yeah,
it works well too.
Yeah. Either one. You know, you'll be the owner. You can change it up every time someone orders the wrong thing. You can just, you can get creative. And who knows? Maybe the people here on Comics Amino will create a Patreon to get Condiment King his own restaurant.
You flatter me. Absolutely. Thank you very much.
So since we're going on close to an hour now, we'll start wrapping this up. So again, if you all want Condiment King to have his own restaurant, donate to the Patreon that does not yet exist, but can exist if you want him to have his own restaurant. So donate there. There will be a link below in the description. But anything? Do you have any blogs or anything like that you're working on with the community you want to promote before we start wrapping this up?
Personally, I am getting ready. I'm not one for spoilers, but I will say I know I've kind of had a lack of posts recently. I mean, I just made one about a month ago, but there is a huge influx of stuff I'm working on. I wish I probably should do update posts, but you should see my drafts right now. My drafts list is piling up, and this stuff is getting released very soon, so stay tuned. Batman's anniversary is coming up soon, and there's a lot of stuff in store. That's all I'm going to say. Okay.
But that actually does remind me, because I remember one of the last posts that I recall at the top of my head was I think it was both your birthday and maybe your anniversary post. But I remember finding out that we actually share the same birthday, which I thought was kind of cool. Did you do anything? Yes. Did you do anything big or anything like that for your birthday? Even though that was like back in June, so a few months ago.
Not much actually. Really, just been laying low. I did over the summer. Go out on a nice little excursion, and I'm back now. And
yeah, you were in Romania, correct?
But yes, personally, my most recent journey has been to Raleigh SuperCon in North Carolina. We're about to get hit with Florence down here, which is not the best. But when I go back to Gotham, I have to say, I'm ditching this Florence, but I am going to miss Raleigh SuperCon. Raleigh SuperCon was a great experience, and I loved it very much. My recent post, I'd made 3 parts to it. Mm-hmm. One of them was a merch overview, one of them was a cosplay overview, and then one of them was just a basic overview of what's called comics that I had signed. So check that out if you haven't already.
All right, cool. And do you have any social media you want to promote for people to follow you before we wrap this up?
No, I'm quite lacking on social media. That's okay though. Thank you, Irishman Jake, for the suggestion.
You're not missing much. I'm on several social medias, and I'm for someone who's on social media, I'm not very social. I'm actually quite antisocial. But if you do want to follow me on social media, and I'll maybe I'll maybe respond or post things. You can follow me on both Twitter. Yeah, Snapchat's the other one that I'm on. Both Irishman Jake, because sometimes I gotta keep everything the same so that way I don't forget who I am. Wake up in a cold sweat and be like, who am I? Because I can just look at all my social media and be like, okay, Irishman Jake, gotcha. Mostly Snapchat. I can't guarantee I'll snap back because I'm not 100% sure how to use that thing. But Twitter, I'm familiar enough to where if you tweet me, I can tweet back and all that stuff. And also on Twitter, I posted pictures from my holiday in Belgium and Germany. So if that interests you, you can follow me on there. I can leave links. I can actually leave links for this stuff because they exist currently to the social medias down below if you so choose. Currently not working on anything, but I do plan on posting something for the Indie AF Club since it's the month of September and we're focusing on Image comics. So basically, I'm still kind of debating on which comic I want to spotlight. But yeah, so just keep up with that. And if anyone ever needs any indie recommendations, I'm more than happy to give you recommendations on plenty of great indie titles because that's kind of my jam. But with all that being said, I think we will conclude this here Comic Conversations. Hopefully you all have enjoyed. And if you all have any ideas for more content to upload here onto the channel, or if you have any guests you would like to see here on the channel, just let me know either here in the comment section of this video, the comment section of the blog version of this that I'll upload or post, or just, message me or comment somewhere on Comics Amino your ideas for guests you would like to see, and I'll try to schedule a comic conversation video or something like that. And again, I'm still trying to work on getting some of the other curators on to interview them. It's just kind of a matter of getting everyone's schedules to align, which is kind of a nightmare most of the time. So thank you, everybody, and until next time, everyone, cheers.